Hello, everybody. I'm Candid Frank. He's David Morrisudi, and I don't know. It doesn't need an introduction, does he? Rodrick Smith. I'll say it that way so they won't know who you are.
Well, you may have to update I just saw the picture that you had on the screen. I mean, the hair color's changed a little bit since then. So.
Oh, well, that stuff can happen. I just like that picture because it was the nicest picture they had of you. So
Thank you.
And you know what?
Yeah.
We're very fortunate to have you here, and I really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
And I got to tell you, I'm dwarfed sometimes by the voice that you have. People say, "Hey, Frank, you got a deep voice," and then there's Rod Smith. So you're easily recognizable to everyone.
I appreciate that. I do, and it's a pleasure to be on with you guys again.
Well, we always appreciate having you.
Absolutely. So I guess the rule changes are the biggest story around the Canadian Football League, and they will be until they're actually enacted, and until we spend some time, realizing what they actually mean. Rod, is that a fair statement on my part?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is for me, Frank. I'm of a couple of minds here. I mean, well, first of all, you look at me, my age. I mean, I'm in my 60s. I've followed the game since the 1960s. I wasn't looking for change. I'm a traditionalist. I like the game the way it is. But I'm not going to sit here and just shake my fist at the sky and object to any change at all, because other sports have done it as well. It's evolution. I mean, and the CFL has made changes too. I remember, 14-game schedules and 25-yard end zones. I mean, it's evolved. And as long as the evolution is ultimately for the better, I mean, I like you, it'll take me a little bit of time to see. I want to see how this all plays out. I'll be curious about it, but I'm not. To me, the fundamentals: 3 downs, unlimited motion, a yard off the ball, 12 to a field, Canadian ratio, the wider field. Definitely, I'm going to miss the longer field. I got to be honest. I mean, that's the one that's been toughest to digest for me, getting rid of the 55-yard line. But I mean, some tweaks along the way to the game, as long as the fundamentals of what really differentiates Canadian football from American football, as long as they remain intact, then I'm okay with it.
I'm going to inject this, and then David, please jump in. As far as the length of the field is concerned, one of the biggest challenges that the Canadian Football League has is new stadiums, because a 10-game schedule does not get you enough money to be able to support a stadium. It's a miracle what Winnipeg and Saskatchewan has done. Would you agree?
Well, I mean, they have they use their facilities for other things. I mean,
that's the point,
for soccer as well. And I know Manitoba Bisons play, there as well. I mean, those stadiums do get used. But I mean, I do see your point that looking ahead, that when you consider the footprint of land and what it's going to be used for. So your argument is basically it's a lot easier to accommodate or make better
share
stadium to share if it's 100 yards as opposed to 110.
We see it every week when we go to BMO Field. We can see it there. The grass. I looked at it the last game, and the 100 yards is going to fit beautifully right in between the stands. With the stands in.
As I say, I'm not. I mean, I realize, and there's been a lot of hue and cry about that doing that is Americanizing the game. I mean, it's because in the U.S. it's a 100-yard field. I think there's more to it than that. Like, as you point out at BMO for soccer, I do. The width of the field is more important to me than the length. But it's still. I'm just saying. I mean, you're giving me practical reasons, and there are several practical reasons for these changes. I get that. I'm just saying, aesthetically speaking, as a fan who grew up with the game the way it was, I mean, we're all to a certain point resistant to change. That's just. I'm not outraged by it, but that's the one thing that's going to feel a little different to me. That was distinctly Canadiana, the CFL, having the 55-yard line. I mean, that's going to be a bit of an adjustment for me.
Well, we have David here to be a spokesman for the other generation, the one we're trying to attract more and more.
I was just going to say, which is a very, very important generation, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the key. And David, before I'm going to say this, I am a traditionalist that's blending into a survivalist, because one has to take into serious consideration the future of the Canadian Football League and how it has to be profitable for all the owners, which is the biggest challenge for all the owners, because they all have different needs. David, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think when you look at the changes, especially I'll start with the field one, is that really a big one in terms of attracting younger audiences. I don't think younger audience is going to come and say, "Oh, look, they got a smaller field, a shorter field. That's great. I'm going to come and watch the games." I don't think that's really the one. It's more so like the quirky ones. Like I think the field goal one, it's funny because I talked to somebody who doesn't really watch a lot of CFL, and they know I cover the CFL, and they're like, "What's with having the field goals at the front of the end zone rather than the back?" Right?
Mhm.
Something like that. Like you think we don't think it's a huge deal, but you talk to somebody who's not watching the game all the time, and they bring that up. That's like one of the first things that gets brought up. Now the 3 downs, I've had some people give, "Oh, it's pretty exciting," and other times like, "Well, it feels like it just kind of shortens out what an offense can do." And I say, well, it does also lead to more exciting plays, and it forces different types of offensive play calls, right? You don't get to tush push on 4 downs. You don't have a quarterback sneak in the CFL on every 3 downs, right? You have to make the most of the downs you have. But I do think when you look at, and I've talked to some younger people who also watch the CFL, they're like, it'd be nice if there was a little bit of a refresher or just change things up to make things to show that the league is willing to make some change, some change to keep the game fresh, right? And not revert back to always what's been going on for the last few years. I don't think like I in talking to someone that just like, I don't see the big deal of all the complaints. It's not like they changed
Yeah.
the fabric of the game that much.
Yeah, fair point. I agree. I'm just saying, and as I say, I'm not outraged. I'm just talking about things that I will, it might take me a bit of getting used to. That's the one. The length of the field is the one more than anything else. I mean, seeing 15-yard end zones and the goalposts at the back. The NFL, I mean, it was pointed out too. The NFL used to have the goalposts. I mean, this was more than a generation ago, and you wouldn't remember it. I vaguely do. I think it was 1974 when they decided to. They always had the 10-yard end zones, but they moved it back to the dead ball line to get it off the goal line, and it worked out well for the NFL. So that was an innovation on their part. I mean, and they are willing to change. Look at the way they've been tinkering with kickoffs, which were just abysmal before. I mean, it was just a non-play, and it's something that they've been toying with. You talk about baseball going with the pitch clock. I mean, NBA years ago going with the 3-point line. Can you imagine? I mean, there's a generation of basketball fans that only know shooting 3-pointers. There was a time a long time ago when that wasn't the case. I mean, so evolution. I mean, I think it's an important part of it. And by the way, too, I mean, Stuart Johnston, I'm sure he's got a lot of praise for these changes. He's certainly taken a lot of heat for it as well. A lot of people critical of changing the game. His mandate coming in was change, and that's from ownership. I mean, he had a unanimous vote. They want things. I mean, 7 of the 9 are losing money. And they do have to think about their future financially as well. I mean, there's a very solid financial footing for the owners of this league. I remember a time in the 90s when it wasn't solid at all. And we had the Alouettes folded in 87 for 9 years. The Ottawa Rough Riders folded, came back as the Renegades, folded again. I mean, it was a turbulent time with American expansion. I mean, the CFL has been through a lot over the years. And they have had to adapt. They've had to adjust. And in this case, to me, it's part of the evolution of the game. I mean, I'm not saying it's not easy. I mean, as I say, as a traditionalist like myself, it's going to take a little bit of getting used to. But I do cling to the biggest fundamentals, and 3 downs does matter to me. That's the hill I would die on. And there are a few other things that are distinctly CFL that you cannot change. Otherwise, it's essentially over, in my opinion. But with these things, it's more curiosity. I want to see. It's a lot to digest in 1 or 2 years, but I'll be curious to see how the game is played. And you know what? If it proves to be a more exciting brand of Canadian football, then it was a good idea.
I'll put this out there. We've had various commissioners. We had one that came solidly from the business world. We've had one that came from the business world, but really he was a player. And now we have someone from the TV world. He comes previously advertised by David and I. David and I had discussions before there was any talk of a new commissioner, that who the next commissioner would be and why should he be wherever he's from, right? And we, David, please correct me if I'm wrong. We felt that television, the presentation of the broadcast, and how it's shared in the world needs to be rediscussed, needs to be found. I think that's the reason why he was brought in. He has that angle that no commissioner has had before him. Some might suggest, oh, yeah, he's a TSN guy. Well, it's less about being a TSN guy. It's more about being a TV guy that I think brings him in here. And these are the changes. So these changes are all he referred to it as a palette, right? He referred to it as the picture, right? So that's what he's going for. He's going for when people look at the game, they feel comfortable and attracted to it, not distracted, like the goalposts are a distraction.
Well, I mean, and one play that he used as an example, I was calling that game.
I know we were in the state.
And well, there are a couple actually. There's another one that I got to call that I want to bring up as well. But the one from this year, which was Hamilton at BC, BC Place, and Robert. It's still to me the highlight of the year. That one-handed catch that he made out Bo Levi Mitchell, the interception in the end zone. Now, when I call a game, it's kind of a hybrid of checking out live field, but also checking out the monitor, because I always want to make sure that I see what people at home can see, if people watching the game can see. I don't want to be, if you get too glued in on live field for that perspective, sometimes cameras might pick up something that you don't necessarily see because it's so far away. So you have to use both. And on the Carter one, I was at the last second looking down and could see that the ball ended up in his hands. I was confused. It was confusing as to how it all happened because it was all so fast. And once you saw a replay, it's like, did he really do that? Stu's point on that was one of the uprights did kind of block where the play was coming in from a TV point of view. If you didn't have the goalpost there, you would have had a cleaner look at that interception. I mean, as I look back at it, I didn't personally see the goalpost as a distraction, but I mean, I do see his point that there is a potential having that obstruction there on a regular, high play-by-play camera to perhaps miss something at game speed at in the live play, and then you rely on the replay to actually see what transpired. But that was one example that he used, and I get it. I mean, when it comes to moving goalposts, I'm not outraged by that. I think there were, well, we'll keep it about. I got a few other thoughts about this, but you're talking about how this could enhance or improve the TV experience. Again, I'll be curious to see how it plays out and how much difference it makes.
Well, the goalpost moving, David, the goalpost moving removes an obstruction that takes away from the need of having a 25-yard end zone, because now you can use most of the end zone, right?
Well, yes and no. I think it comes down to more so not every team has a 20-yard end zone, right? It's not universal. Montreal doesn't have that.
Montreal and Toronto, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like it's like you kind of think it's just like I don't know if a competitive part was brought into this. I just think they're like, let's just make it all the same, right? Let's just make it all the same. And look, if you are moving the goalpost, yeah, you are going to have a little bit more room to work with, right, in that end zone. And
both ways,
right? Exactly, both ways. So I think, I don't know if that was brought in mind. I think also if you're going to move the goalpost to the back, you can't have as long of an end zone because you got to give kickers, right?
Well, this is the thing. 35 now becomes a 57. Yeah. It used to be. I mean, the way it's been, you get to the 35, chances are you're certainly in a score zone here. You got that's a 42-yard field goal. It's now a 57. A 30 is a 52. I'm assuming they didn't say this, but I'm assuming for the 1 point after, they scrimmage at the 10. They
that was the question I was trying to ask the commissioner. Does that mean that I asked it broadly. I said, how's it going to affect where you place the ball in a kick?
I'm assuming, they probably have to iron that out, but it makes sense. They wanted to keep it if they want to keep it at 32, which they only changed a few years ago. Put it at the 10. It's still a 32 then, right?
Right.
So I mean, that would, but you're certainly going to reduce field goals. And I think this plays into talking about the 100-yard field, like knocking it down. I mean, there are a few reasons, but one of them, depending on where you start on the field, but generally speaking, you're going to have a longer field to work with, and you got to get so much deeper into the zone to have a shot at a field goal. And the thing that I do wonder about, I mean, the whole a lot of the reasons behind this is more touchdowns, more excitement, more offense, instead of just settling for 3, getting into the end zone. And what are teams going to consider when they get down to the 35, when they're looking at a 57-yard, or do they go for it on 3rd down? But the part that I wonder about that is, and we've already seen the improvement of placement and punting with the Aussies coming in, the global initiative the last few years. Punting in the league in terms of accuracy has never been better. Yeah. I mean, because some of the tricks these guys have, and it's not just the Aussies, but I mean, it's dominated by Australian punters who are, who have been very good at placing it inside the 10. But I mean, are you going to see more punting? I mean, that's something that you have to consider when you're down in that range. If you're playing the field position game, if you decide 57 for our kicker is too far to go for it, and it's it's 3rd down and 10. We're not just going to turn it over on downs. Do we try to pin them deep? I mean, instead of kick the field goal. I mean,
oh my God, it's so dreadful. We're going to have more kick returns. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, I mean, you know what?
I hate kick returns. What can
I was going to say? I mean, I'm not saying it like this is a bad thing.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I want to see if it's more about more touchdowns. Will we see more touchdowns? That's the part. But no, the kick return game, that's the thing. In the 3-down game, special teams matters that much more. I've always thought this, and I love the NFL, by the way. I grew up loving both leagues and appreciating their differences. But special teams has always been more interesting in the CFL because, there's more of it, there's more opportunities. I mean, that's another thing. I mean, the missed field goal, it's not as likely to have missed field goal returns. It would take really a field goal attempt that's short. But punt returning? No, I mean, I'm just saying how the game could change. I mean, the assumption is that because it's so much harder to kick a field goal now, that teams will be going for it more. Maybe they'll be choosing to punt and play the field position game and try to hem teams, deep in the zone, kick it out of bounds down, try to get them down inside the 5.
Or how about when you're on 3rd down, and you fake that you're going to actually make a play, just try to draw the other team offside. Maybe this becomes a little more tempting to actually have a play, which I think they should do anyway, because if you just do it all the time, like the Argos do it, for example, Dinwiddie does it all the time, tries to draw the other team offside.
Sure. Yeah.
But if you throw in a play once in a while, that makes that play
just to keep them honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah. Go ahead, David.
No, I think you're right. I think, oftentimes teams are too willing to go for the field goals, especially because they know, okay, they take the safe play on 2nd down. It's like, okay, well, as long as we make it a little easier for our field goal kicker.
Yeah.
I think the league is understanding, let's try to get more touchdowns. Field goals are great. You need kickers. Field goals, those points become valuable when you're trying to make a comeback or you're trying to keep a team, you're trying to maintain the lead. I'm not saying the field goals are irrelevant. I just find that sometimes CFL teams get a little too comfortable wanting to go to their kicker. Like, a kicker shouldn't be kicking it 6, 7, 8 times in a game for field goals, right? You should be wanting more of those 3 points to become touchdowns.
Yeah.
That's kind of the thing. I'm not saying that the field goal, moving the field goals will necessarily change this, but it will change, I think, the thinking of the offenses and how they handle those opportunities once they get to past midfield.
Yeah, and that's the key. Past midfield, where it is definitely going to change it is, where are you comfortable kicking a field goal now? Really, you pretty well want to get down to the opposing 30, as opposed to, maybe the 45. We're talking about a 15-yard difference here. So, not to say there won't be longer field goal tries than 52 yards. We already see lots of that. But fewer field goal attempts, I would assume, unless you get deep in the zone, to encourage it. And yeah, you're right. It may. I'm not saying it won't play out in terms of more touchdowns. I'll be curious to see how it does play out. I'm as curious about, is anything else about how this is going to look. But I am glad, again, to come back to it, that it's still the fundamentals of CFL offenses, of CFL football are still going to be there. And I wouldn't want to see much more change when it comes to that.
I think the red zone is going to be a lot closer too, so that's going to heighten some excitement as well because of
the
that
shorter
missing
field.
10 because of the missing 10 yards. It's going to be a little easier to get down.
And I think they looked at that we can't put we can't extend. I mean, you're essentially the field is shorter, but the goalposts are further apart, right?
Absolutely.
You reduce 10 yards, but you're going back 15 each way. You're going back 30. So what is that? 20 further. It's the goalposts are 20 further yards. 20 yards more apart in this new formation. So I'm sure they thought, well, if we keep it at 110, I'm sure that was a factor in their thinking that we've got to shorten the field if we're moving the goalposts back. So because it's a long field for offenses to work down, especially to even get in any kind of scoring range now. So but will it make offenses to David's point more aggressive, especially in their second down play calling? I mean, that could get more exciting. As I say, if defenses are really good and if offense is stalling a lot, I mean, you're going to see just as much. You'll see just as much or more punting. But if it leads to more exciting returns, I mean, I'm not. I'm there for that too. I'm very curious to see how all of this is going to look, how it's all going to work out.
And that's the important one there, Rod. Curious to see how it's going to work out. Like we should be letting that curiosity and the desire to see how it happens rather than saying already, we're changing it to become like the kind of the opposite side of that, right? I think we should be more open to seeing how things are going, how we think it's going to look versus thinking it's not going to work at all. I think there's a bit too much of that from especially the old, I would call it the old guard.
I'm one of them. I'm definitely one.
So am I.
Yeah.
I'm not ashamed of it, but like I said, I'm a bit of a survivalist too.
Yeah,
I believe the survival.
Yeah, you're right. I don't want to be. I'm old guard. I'm traditionalist, but I don't want to be completely resistant to new ideas. I don't think that's a good thing.
Here's what I want to talk about now because we don't have much more time. Rod's got to go, but I want to touch this subject. This actually hits you as well as the fans, and that is the viewing pleasure of everybody in the stadium, including you watching the game. The game now is going to be more compact, right? So I know because I used to sit as a season ticket holder where the visiting team at BMO comes out. Boy, that's a long distance to the other end of the field for me to see. I think it's going to create, and I think, Stuart pointed that out. He says, we can create more of a cozy atmosphere. I think he's 100% right in that regard as well. I think that's going to be a benefit once the fans sit in the stands and realize what this change means to them and their viewing, and I underline this, pleasure.
Yeah. Well, what about stadium configuration, though? How is that going to work? I mean, if the seats aren't changing, you're still the same distance from the playing surface, right? I mean,
no, because Rod, when we're at I don't mean to disagree. That was very rude of me to talk to you like that as a guest. But what I'm going to say is where the grass is at BMO Field, because this is what I know. This is what the stadium I know real well. The grass now is going to be the football field.
Yes.
The goal lines are going to be at the end of the stands at BMO, as opposed to going past the ends of the stands. So now those people are going to be closer to the play.
Oh, I see your point. When you're talking about down near the end zone. Yeah.
Right. So, and then also the people in the opposite corner have 20 yards less of distance to see. The game gets closer to them. It doesn't move as far away from them. I speak of this only because of where I sat in my season tickets. When a play got to the very end, anything that could bring the play closer, I'm happy with as a season ticket holder. That's all. The only point I'm trying to make. And for yourself, you talked about that play that you saw. It's going to be a little bit closer to you and not as far away. And when you look at the screen, you're going to see, I'm sure you're going to see, maybe this is better for the fans' viewing pleasure. Maybe. I'm proposing.
Yeah, all good points by you. I will say this, though, in all honesty, it hasn't been inconvenient for me as both a spectator and as a broadcaster. I've been fine with it. I'm not resistant to change, but I'm not one of those who is clamoring for change, thought this has to change. I mean, but it's interesting to hear your perspective on that, and I'm sure there are other fans who feel the same way, that their viewing experience is going to get better. So Again, I hate keep bringing up the word curious, but I honestly am. I'd like to know how this is going to improve it. I'm not saying I doubt it, but it's trickier coming from a perspective of someone that just loves the game as it is. I'm not saying it can't get better, and that's why I'm not as resistant to change as maybe someone in my demographic would otherwise be. And some of it, as I say, there's logic to it as well. I'll tell you another one too. I was just going to mention the other game that last year I got to broadcast Saskatchewan at Toronto in 2024. Do you remember how that one at BMO?
Yep.
Okay, and that's and that game became Exhibit A in terms of recent history of a game ending on a missed field goal, and that's a practical argument, and I get it. I mean, the chances, it is so infrequent that the chances of a Grey Cup ever being decided by a missed field goal without the other team having any chance at all to return it or kick it out, which, by the way, was distinctly Canadian as a kid growing up, because I saw a big game end that way, which was nuts, but it was classic CFL. But I can understand the concern that they don't want, the optics are terrible if you have, failure being rewarded, as they like to put it, with a missed field goal, ending, deciding a championship. So I know that was part of it. That was Lira Lau last year against the Rough Riders, missing a field goal. And I remember calling it, and at first you get conditioned to thinking a field goal for the win. And then it's, oh my goodness, he missed it. And then it's, oh my goodness, it doesn't matter because it's out of the back of the end zone and they win anyway on a rouge. So that has some people divided, but I get it. I understand the logic in not wanting to see that happen, especially in a championship game.
David, ask Rod your last question. You asked the last question. I give it to you.
Well, I mean, we should ask a regular, actual on-field question. If you were to pick your favorite to go to the Grey Cup, your two teams, who are they?
Recency bias. I'll be making Saskatchewan Rough Rider fans angry because they still. They're still the top team in the league. They haven't played as well lately, but they are still the number one team in the league. But the BC Lions look awfully hot, and I'm thinking. Tell you what, I still think it's Hamilton, because it looks like they're going to get, unless they fall apart and Montreal runs the table. I mean, it looks like Hamilton's going to get to host the Eastern Final, which is huge. They still have to win again, and the Alouettes with Davis Alexander back are a good team. So that is very close in the East. But I'd still say Hamilton. I just think the way the Lions look right now, and it isn't just because of Nathan Rourke, their defense is getting a lot better now. And I was out at the game against Calgary last week, and they look solid. And if it's, it's so tricky, because when I see how good Winnipeg looked against Hamilton the other week, and we still don't know how that division is going to settle. So this is kind of a loose pick by me. I'll say BC Hamilton, but there's still just so much uncertainty, especially in the West right now. And, it's a tough one. I mean, let me throw that back to you guys. What are you thinking? I just like the way the Lions are trending right now.
I'm going to say this. This is what I'm going to say. This is probably the best opportunity for the crossover team to be successful in the East that in my recollection, because of the quality of the teams that are competing for that position.
Yeah.
So that to me. So it could be, to your point, Rod, it could be anybody in the Western Division that could win the Grey Cup, in my opinion. Anybody could do it. I agree with you. The one thing that the Grey Cup, one of the marquee things about the Grey Cup is the winner usually goes into that game on a good run. That's historical. That's historical repetition that you can almost count on. That how a team plays at the end of the year going into the Grey Cup can be very important. And well, look what happened with the Alouettes. I mean, that kind of thing. David,
I think for me, if BC crossovers to the East or even Winnipeg, I like one of those two. I just think the West have proven they've got the better all-around team. I mean, Montreal can still find their championship form. I think they'll probably give a good push to whoever's there.
Having Davis Alexander back, sir.
Yeah, that's huge. Huge. We're seeing that each and every game now that he's back. The confidence that team has when he's there is huge. I just think like a guy like Nathan Rourke has just taken his game to another level. And when he's playing the way he needs to play, I think that's big for them. But in the West, I would have said a long time ago Calgary, but I think Saskatchewan still has if the all-round team game. If they can just cut down, if they can just get healthy, if they can get healthy and back, that makes a big.
They've had a lot of injuries. They have that, and they didn't. I was at the game in Edmonton where, I mean, they did not play well. And hey, good on the Elks. I mean, they did what they survived. It came down to a 2-point convert try to tie it and force overtime, and Saskatchewan wasn't able to score the 2. They had a furious little comeback there. But it is so hard. The Riders, deservedly so, are the number 1 team. And they deserve to be the favorite. I just think BC is the hottest team. Calgary is the coldest team right now. And Calgary just played in Montreal, 2 weeks ago. And that, to me, would be the most logical crossover right now, the way things are going for the Stampeders. Unless they can get it back on the rails in Hamilton, that's not going to be easy, this weekend. So if it's Calgary, I'm not so sure about a crossover team going all the way to the Grey Cup. But teams I wonder about, I do wonder about Winnipeg. There's just, the game to me, Edmonton survived against Saskatchewan. Edmonton hosts Winnipeg. If Edmonton can win that game and stay alive, then that'll cool off the Bombers a little bit. That would be awfully telling. But right now, it is just so hard to figure out. Looks like Saskatchewan and Hamilton are going to finish as the 2 first-place teams. The way things stand right now, it's looking like Riders and Ticats as the number 1 teams heading into the playoffs.
It's going to be very interesting to see. I like the fact that it's so wide open and nobody can say for sure who they think is going to be.
Well, I don't want to say it, but I really do see a possibility that it could be BC, and this is going to sound crazy, but I don't know. There's something about Edmonton and their quarterback that tends to pull games out of thin air, that they could surprise people and be in the Grey Cup against BC. I think BC stays in the playoffs and Edmonton crosses over, and then what happens from there? It's quite possible.
Well, you look at what Edmonton's done in the East, with Fajardo. They won in Montreal. They had that dramatic, and that must have felt good for Fajardo to win that one. Absolutely. It's Keon Julian Grant at the end. So they upset the Alouettes. And then they had their trip to Ontario in back-to-back weeks where they lose 2 games and walk-off field goals. I mean, think about that. Think of how different Edmonton's record would be. And a lot of teams could say that. Yeah, true enough. Everyone has their close finishes. I mean, it's not just Edmonton. But given how bad things were at the start of the season for the Elks and how they've come on, what a difference that would have made had they been able to hang on and beat the Argos, had they been able to hang on and beat the Ticats, and they led both of those games in the final minute. I mean, I would not argue against that. I mean, any team in the West could certainly, the one team I'm wondering right now, because they're ice cold, is Calgary.
Yeah, I don't think they're a factor unless they get really healthy, really fast. Yeah. And if that doesn't happen. But I got to tell you, I just can't bet against Fajardo. I just can't bet against him. That kid takes a team, doesn't matter how in a hole they are, he marches them down. Montreal knows it firsthand, not only because he played against them, but also because he played for them earlier. Yeah. So they're very well in tune with that. David, I'll give you the last word before we let
I just think that we're in for a fascinating finish. It's the last few years, I think we've started to see the shift where it's not as many teams just dominating from start to finish, right? We're seeing a bit of the ups and downs, and I'm sure fans hate it, but for us that cover the game, we like to see the unpredictable nature that the CFL brings.
Well, yeah, and to tie that, David, into the rules again, and Frank, I hope, even though with the 35-second clock coming in, I hope the exciting finishes can continue. I mean, to me, it's just, you can have a game that's borderline mundane, and some of them, the way they finish is just outstanding. And I say that not just as a broadcaster, but just as a fan of the game. It's just so enjoyable to watch. And, I certainly hope any rule changes doesn't take that part out of it. That, to me, that's an important thing, because it's been a fun year, especially. There've been so many exciting finishes and exciting games and plays and everything else. And I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes from here.
We are as well. I am as well. So, Rod, thank you for being here, and I really appreciate you going through the trouble of dyeing your hair just to make my picture look bad.
Yeah, I dye it. I just dye it gray now, so it's consistency. That shot that you had, that looks like an old CFL studio shot.
It is a studio shot. The lighting's really good for the picture. The lighting's good. The picture, I liked it. It was less about what it was the quality of the picture. And you know, when you go on whatever to go get stuff like that, you got to make decisions, and that was my decision.
Thank you. Well, I don't mind.
we look forward. David and I look forward to seeing you at the Grey Cup. And we look forward to you calling the next games, the way the season begins to end. And of course, we look forward to you doing the play-by-play of the Grey Cup game. Thank you. I assume you're doing that again because there would be a revolt if you weren't.
Well, no, I mean, I don't know about that, but I am lucky to do it. This will be my 5th, and it's a dream come true, lifetime dream come true, no question.
I think that's one time you can actually say that being blessed with that privilege is really a blessing.
It is.
And congratulations on that. And thank you for all the good work that you've done.
Appreciate it.
You're iconic. And when I hear your voice, I think of the Canadian Football League. And I want to thank you for that.
That's a huge compliment. I thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Have a great day, Rod.
Thank you.
You can just click out. You can just click out and you're done.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you,
Good chatting with you.
All right. It was great of him to stay as long as he did. I guess I could take him out too.
Yeah.
No, there he took himself out. So it was really good to talk to him. David, the big thing here is, and what we're hearing is, and the three of us agreed. And I think if you had a vote on it, I think most reasonable people who don't go for the knee-jerk reaction are going to say, well, let's have a wait and see attitude. And I think that's the best way to approach the new rules. Wait and see. We've learned from previous changes that once the changes are made and they're enacted, 99.9% of the time they were well thought out and they played out well. And I always hold up, the same motivation was for pass interference. Hamilton lost the game because of a pass interference penalty that wasn't called. And that change was made. People were panicking. Oh, now you're going to ruin the way defenses work. And it turned out, David, I think it made better athletes out of DBs.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, no. The thing, because we talk so much about how, allowing the game to have some good flow to it, but you have to take the good and the bad. Do you want games to be called properly, or do you want games to just not have those delays? You can't say you need to call the game right, but we also don't want these delays so that they can review things. It doesn't work like that. Technology, it's getting a little better. They're better at calling and getting those plays sorted. We're not seeing those massive difference in terms of like game endings. But I do think that, if you want change, you want the product to be better, there's a bit of give and take in anything that's done with that.
Absolutely. All right. With the minutes that we have left, we've got topics we like to touch on. Of course, we like to touch on the Argos, but what we'll do is we'll talk about the games last week. We'll talk about Saskatchewan and Ottawa. Ottawa lost that game 20-13 at home. David, we've talked about this before. I think we both agreed that we thought for a time that for the past few years, it seems, this is the year the Ottawa's going to play well. This is the year Ottawa's going to compete for a playoff spot. And somehow the season starts and the opportunities to make the playoffs just evaporate. They've traded Malden, which is an important player. He is an important player to their team. Saskatchewan beats them. I don't know that game really means anything. I don't think we learned or gleaned anything from that game. What do you think? Anything new, at least, anyway? No,
I don't think so. I think it just kind of, for the Red Blacks, it's just it just shows where your team is kind of lacking. And I hate to say it, but just it hasn't been good enough, right? They've lost the last 3 games. It's been up and down for them. They need to really take a hard look in the mirror and say, was last year just a fluke? I don't think anything is really a fluke in the CFL, but this is talking about the long-term sustainable success.
Or
They just don't have. They're just not having that right now. Drew Brown's going to be shut down for the rest of the year as well because he's just so banged up. And so I think if you're Ottawa, you need to take a hard look and say, do we have the quarterback that can win? If you feel you have the quarterback to win, how do we keep him on the field? Because unfortunately, if you are a fan of Drew Brown, then you are a fan of him playing at least 16, 17 games like he did last year. 10 games this year. And it's, 14 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Second straight year he's had 10 interceptions.
Yeah, on a shorter schedule.
Right? I just think that he's got the talent. I think I still think, yes, he's a good quarterback, but they went and they got him a bunch of weapons, but then they can't protect them. And some teams, it just feels like, let's go and bring in this brand, go and get like the Maserati, but then you get like the budget tires, right? Like you can't. You have to make sure that everything is working, properly. In my opinion, right? You need it just at Ottawa. It was too many mistakes for them this year.
It's no accident that Scott Milanovich, becoming the head coach of the Hamilton Tiger Cats, set them on a successful path where they find themselves today. I believe they need a coaching change in Ottawa, and the next head coach that they bring in is going to be, he or she are going to define the team completely. And I say that knowing full well that you cannot win without a quarterback in the Canadian Football League. But I believe whatever head coach comes in, no head coach goes to a team if the team does not have a quarterback. Bo Levi Mitchell was in Hamilton before Scott Milanovich became the head coach. And I think a game recognizes game is what I'll say. And it's not just about an individual changing a team's fortune. It's an individual recognizing a team's fortunes can change and they can be a big part of it. And that's where Ottawa is right now. They've tried with, the quarterback situation. They've solved that. They haven't solved the offensive line. That's key for the survival of any quarterback that's back there. And it's not just about balance. It's about survival. You need your quarterback to play the majority of the games. If your quarterback goes out to injury because he's being pummeled by the opposition, you need a starting quarterback in the Canadian Football League who's good. And if your quarterbacks are getting taken down, then, that's just counterintuitive. So that's what Ottawa needs. They need to protect their quarterback. I think they've got the right quarterback. I just don't think they know how to protect them. And I don't think you can go another year with the same head coach.
I think just the coaching staff in general, I think they need a bit of a restart there. If you truly believe in what you have, then okay, you can get away with making improvements in the coaching staff. But that's the thing. The general manager, once a coach is let go, right, he becomes the next target if things don't go right. So you need to believe that, okay, we are going to make the coaching change because we feel that it's the right course of action and not because we are, change for the sake of making change. I never like when teams do that. But in Ottawa's case, they had a good year last year and then it all kind of went downhill. That can't happen. It just can't happen in Ottawa. So that's a team that needs to be competitive each and every year. Like competitive meaning they don't necessarily need to get to the playoffs every year, but they can't be bottom of the league, right? That just can't happen.
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest problem here that they have to overcome is they have to remember this is not a personal decision. It's a personnel decision. And sometimes people conflate the two. Because the guy's a nice guy, we shouldn't fire him. Well, at the end of the day, that's irrelevant. The Canadian Football League is in the business, and all the teams are in the business of getting results, and results-based decisions are paramount. It's just the way it is. And I just think that they've tried switching out players, they've tried switching out quarterbacks, they've tried switching out a GM. There's only one other place they've got to try right now, and that is the head coach. They need a coaching staff, maybe, that can use the players the GM has given them. And if the new coach, after a year or two, can't make sense of the players he's got, then it's a question of the GM. These are realities of football. These are realities of sports. There is nobody that can't be removed, that you can live without anybody. Nobody's indispensable. So at the end of the day, Ottawa needs to make changes because they need to understand or execute a plan and have the players to execute that plan. And the plan is to make the playoffs. I disagree with you a little bit there, David. They have to make the playoffs. There is, every team, for any kind of level of success, it's measured by if they have a chance to win the championship.
Yeah.
From the fans' perspective. If you don't have a chance to win the Grey Cup, then you're not happy with your team. Because just as unhappy as Argo fans are, who have a long memory and a short memory both, they didn't make the playoffs this year. This makes them unhappy. Mind you, they're not in the same boat as the Ottawa Red Blacks. Hamilton came in and segue here that came in and beat the Argos, put the last nail in the coffin for a playoff opportunity. They were full value for the victory. And the Argos were in that game so many times and fell out of the game even more. It was an amazing game to watch, David. It literally spoke to the season the Argos had.
Yeah, I mean, it just, when you just feel like they're taking the right steps forward, if something goes against them, right? Quarterback gets hurt again, right? And it just, you look at that game specifically, and like the bad start, they couldn't get anything really going. It fell behind, trying to engineer a comeback, and they weren't good enough to cover their mistakes. We've known this all season, but this game, I think, put an exclamation on it.
Well, hindsight's a beautiful thing, right? I mean, hindsight's 100%. Once you have, and then even then it's not 100%, but it's close. And what we can say looking back is they didn't establish a running game, and that running game didn't establish an opportunity for the offense to be very effective, even though it was. I mean, when you consider without the running game, the offense worked really well. Arbuckle's arm carried that team offensively, and the defense had a slow start. Special teams had a slow start, and then it got to the point where too many bad things had happened. Too many games were lost early in the season that no matter how successful they became at the end of the year, they weren't going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, it just became too much of an uphill battle. And look, you
Absolutely.
never want to say never. The team, to their credit, was never talking about not making the playoffs, even when they were well below 500. I give them credit for that. But at the end of the day, you have to find a way to come up with the wins, right, to get yourself back into it. And they, unfortunately, it wasn't in the cards for them this year. They're gutted from top down in terms of losing guys on the coaching staff, losing players, on and off, on the field, technically off the field, with Jack Hill not even being an option this year. Like,
there you go.
This year it just felt like too much to overcome for one team, and you don't like to use injuries as an excuse, and I know that they weren't, but I do think there's just way too many things that were going against them.
The only thing I would say where injury was a problem, that is the running game. It affected the running game. They lost their running back, but they didn't have a backup plan, and that's something in the Canadian Football League. You have the next man up mentality. That's the key to success. Let's go over to Calgary and BC. They lose 38-24. Rod's pick for the Grey Cup, and that is the BC Lions. And they have steadily improved during the season, and they're on a good roll right now. And this kind of roll can lead you to a Grey Cup and even a victory. So. What did you think? Calgary again came up short, by your definition, a team that's not been that good lately, and really, if it wasn't for the fact that Ottawa and Toronto were not so good, they could have dropped right out of the playoffs if that the safety net is the crossover for Calgary.
It is, and for Calgary, it's just another one of those games where confirms kind of two things. One, Vernon Adams Jr. He's faltering at the wrong time of the year, and this is why BC made the change that they made. Like, I frankly, is it harsh to say that? Maybe, but his play hasn't been good enough. For them. BC, Nathan Rourke, like you're looking at the comparison of the two quarterbacks, one threw for 414 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Yeah, the 2 interceptions aren't great, but it's one fewer than the other guy threw. And the big thing with Calgary is the defense. The defense is there's a reason why they went out and got Malden. It's because the defense has just been hit hard. They lost Flo Remalade, so they needed to go out and get somebody that can help shore up that defensive line because they're not getting pressure on the quarterback as much as they were. There's just too many things that are not working in their favor. I'm just quickly checking. I don't.
You check that. I'm just going to interject that Remalade was.
I think the last game, like they did get pressure on. They did get pressure on Nathan Rourke, but I don't think it's to the degree that they would like to see it, at least,
or that they were accustomed to. And the trade they made with the Argos for Remalade was the main reason the head coach said when he drafted him in training camp. He said he's a team leader. He's a guy players will rally around. He's a guy that nobody works harder. Nobody's here sooner. Nobody does more than he does on the field. And his absence was very sorely missed. He was sorely missed. A great player. And of course, the games this week, Toronto's in Saskatchewan. Unfortunately for Toronto, it's a game where the players, the most they can do is be spoilers, be difficult, make it hard for Saskatchewan to finish first. For Saskatchewan, it's an opportunity to play a team that hasn't played well, pad their stats so that they can end up finishing first. They're in the playoffs already. What do you think this game means to both these teams?
Oh, I mean, you look at just looking at the week's schedule, right? Calgary for me is a team that should be the most concerned in terms of they could lose second.
Absolutely.
Right? Winnipeg can get right into second place. I don't know if they have if they win and Calgary loses, boom, they're right up there. BC is kind of in a similar boat too, right? Where if they technically I think they're just looking right now. Technically they're in second. Calgary probably doesn't mind being the crossover team, but we say that, but then when was the last time a crossover team went to the Grey Cup?
No, I agree. My only point about the crossover being dangerous for the East is if the team that comes over has a level of momentum, and unfortunately, because those three teams are so close, it's going to be the team that doesn't play well going into the playoffs, and that's how they're going to play.
I'll say this, Frank: if you're Montreal and Hamilton, would you rather play Calgary? Or would you rather play Winnipeg right now?
Right now, Calgary, easily this team that you'd want to play. It goes without saying. Calero's healthy, playing well, and that team with what it has, they're dangerous. And you know what? I think they have the attitude if they're a cornered animal, that team bounces really well back. They're a team that loves a challenge. They're accustomed to it. They've represented the East for 5 years in a row. So they know how to win the big games. So you don't want to be playing them. That's for sure.
No.
Then we've got with the Calgary Hamilton. Hamilton, is in a battle for first place. Calgary's in a battle for the playoffs and positioning. And I really think this game is going to be hard fought for those reasons.
I do. No, I really do. Like Hamilton wants to ensure that they get first. I think they've clinched. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure they've clinched They clinched the playoffs. I don't know if they've clinched. No, they haven't clinched the division yet. No one's clinched the division yet.
Right. Not yet.
Sorry. So Hamilton wants the division.
So
we know this. It's important to make it to the Grey Cup, to not have the easier route. Okay, I wouldn't say easier route. The
shortest route.
Yeah. Thank you. That's what they want. And so this, and look, as good as they beat the Argos, there were some areas they still need to work on.
Absolutely. The Argos could have won that game. If they would have caught a break or been a little more tough on defense, they could have won that game. No question. There were a couple of times where they had an opportunity to win that game. You know, they were shown opportunities more than once against Hamilton that day. And they they were unable to take advantage of any of those opportunities.
Yeah.
And so and then we've got Winnipeg and Edmonton. This is another critical game. Winnipeg, this is a pre-playoff game. This is a set up the playoff situation for these two teams. These two teams have a lot at stake in this game. So this is going to be another big game this weekend. I'd say this is like 1A or 1B compared to Calgary and Hamilton in importance, in relevance.
Yeah, I think it's more important for Calgary because Hamilton has a more of an advantageous position. Calgary is in a we don't want to lose. We really want to make things easier on ourselves, and we still have an opportunity to make things easier on ourselves.
And because of what you said, none of these teams want to be the crossover team because nobody wants to travel out east. No. So and Winnipeg and Edmonton. This is an important game to me because I truly believe that these two teams they're good enough. They just haven't shown it, but I believe they have the seeds of being a Grey Cup champ. If I saw these two teams in the Grey Cup, it wouldn't surprise me if I saw these two teams in the Grey Cup. Winnipeg and Edmonton, simply because how they play these next few games could set themselves up in a good situation. I like both of them, and I've already said why. And it's going to be interesting. I like this is one of the games I'm going to watch very closely.
Yeah, I mean, you look at, you have three games here where the three teams their playoffs are pretty much out of the picture. Especially for for Toronto and Ottawa because they're officially limited, but Edmonton's on the but they're also going to play for some pride.
Absolutely.
Which means don't expect if I'm these other teams, don't expect them to say, okay, do what you need to do.
Yeah,
you're good. We don't have to. We're not. It's not going to be that case. There are guys who want to put themselves in a position to win jobs for next year.
We're going to find out how proud the players are in Ottawa. We know that Montreal needs the victory. Montreal's going to be ready for that game. Montreal's going to be ready to play. They're taking no prisoners. Ottawa's going to have to play the kind of game that gives their fans some hope for next year. And this is a sad thing about it is that fans have to hope on that is that, let's see how they play today. And maybe it'll give us reason to believe that they're going to be okay next year. For me, that's not good enough, but it is something that a team can grasp to, and that's something that fans can look at, which is great. So those are the four games that will be being played this weekend. We're into the 19th week. We just had the 18th, and this is the 19th week, and now we're down to 2 weeks left, and then we have the playoffs. So it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks, David. Did David freeze? He did. Timing is everything. All right. For David Morisuti, I'm Candid Frank Stanishi. Thank you for watching. We appreciate you watching us. Don't forget you can follow up on stuff that we do here. Candid Frank Stanishi at 10:30 on YouTube. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.